Ada Yahuah.
Yahuah.
So we're going to another study of Yakhazaq'al, but this time we're looking at chapter 16, and it's going to be another exegetical study. So Yakhazaq'al 16 is one of the most powerful allegorical chapters in scripture, depicting Yarushalam as an abandoned, rescued, but ultimately disloyal wife. Yahuah portrays covenant relationship with Israel as a marriage, showing his loyalty and Israel's betrayal through idolatry. So this intense and graphic passage mirrors other prophetic texts such as Hosea or Usha 2 and Jeremiah 3, which describe Israel as a wayward wife. However, Yakhazaq'al 16 goes even deeper into Yarushalam's spiritual history, using raw, shocking imagery to emphasize Israel's crookedness. So we're going to ask someone to read verse 1 to 3 of Yakhazaq'al 16.
Again, the word of Yahuah came to me, saying, Son of man, make known to Jerusalem her abominations, and say, Thus said the Adon Yahuah to Jerusalem, your origin and your birth are from the land of Canaan. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite.
All right. So looking at Yarushalam's birth, abandoned and despised. Now, there's a key phrase that popped out between verse 1 and 2. And these key phrases are, cause Yarusalam to know. Now, Israel was blind to her wrongs and needed prophetic rebuke. So Yahuah command Yakhazaq'al to expose their wickedness. So the word abomination, tuabuth. This is a term often associated with idolatry and sexual wrongs. And we're going to look at two scripture that use the same word, tuabuth. We're going to look at Uakara, or Leviticus 18, verse 22 to 30, and also Adabarim, or Deuteronomy 12, verse 31. So we're going to have someone to read for us.
Leviticus 18:22. And do not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination.
Verse 30.
And do not have intercourse with any beast to devour herself with it. And a woman does not stand before a beast to mate with it. It is a perversion. And do not defile yourself with all these, for by all these the nations are defiled, which I am driving out before you. Thus the land became defiled, before I punished it for its wickedness, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. But you shall guard my laws and my right rulings, and do not do of these abominations. The native are a strong stranger who sojourn among you, because the men of the land who were brought before you have done all these abominations, and thus the land became defiled. So let not the land vomit you out for dwelling in, and it vomited out the nations that were before you. For whoever does any of these abominations, those beings who do them shall be cut off from among their people. And you shall guard my charge so as not to do any of these abominable practices which were done before you, and so as not to defile yourselves by them. I am Yahuah, your Lord. Yama.
All right, Toda.
Deuteronomy 12:31. Do not do so to Yahuah your Lord, for every abomination which Yahuah hates, they have done to their mighty ones. For they even burn their sons and daughters in the fire to their mighty one. Do that.
All right, Toda. So again, what you just read, we see abomination be used as idolatry and sexual wrong. But in the situation of Yakhazaq'al 16 or Ezekiel 16, we see where the word abomination to a booth, in this term, to a booth, it refers to idolatry and covenant disloyalty. So looking at verse 3, so the Canaanite, the Amorite, and the Hittite. So not literally on genealogy, but a metaphor for Yarushalam's spiritual heritage. So the Amorites and the Hittites were Canaanite nation steeped in idolatry. And we're going to look at Bereshit, Genesis 15, verse 16, and at Devarim, or Deuteronomy 7, verse 1 to 3.
Then in the fourth generation, they shall return here, for the wickedness of the Amorites is not yet complete.
Toda for reading. And Adabarim, or Deuteronomy 7, verse 1 to 3.
Deuteronomy 7. When Yahuah your Lord brings you into the land which you go to possess, he shall also clear away many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you. And when Yahuah your Lord gives them over to you, you shall smite them and put them under the ban completely. Make no covenant with them and show them no favor, and do not intermarry with them. You do not give your daughter to his son, and you do not take his daughter for your son. Do that.
Toda for reading. All right. So it's as I said, it's not a physical but a spiritual representation. So Jerusalem moral origin were pagan. They were not chosen for their righteousness. And we're gonna see this in Devarim 7, the same chapter we just read, but we're gonna look at verse 7 to 8.
Yahuah did not place his love on you, nor choose you because you were more numerous than any other people, for you were the least of all peoples. But because of Yahuah loving you, and because of him guarding the oath which he swore to your fathers, Yahuah has brought you out with a strong hand and redeems you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mizraim.
All right. So, for reading, I'm just gonna say this. When reading this verse right here, these verses, it let me realize that we definitely are chosen people, and also shows me that Yahuah humble us as individuals, knowing that we were the least among us, and he decided to choose us as his people. Yada Yahuah.
Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
So let us read verse 4 to 5 of Yakhazaq'al 16.
As for your birth, on the yom you were born, your navel cord was not cut, nor were you washed in water for cleansing, and you were not rubbed with salt at all, nor wrapped in cloth at all. No eye felt sorry for you to do any of these for you, to have compassion on you, but you were thrown out into the open field to the loathing of your chai, or your life, on the yom you were born.
Total for reading. And if you look on our screen, you see an image of an abandoned newborn. So, an illustration of an abandoned newborn. So Israel was helpless and unwanted, unwashed, unpitied, cast away. The nation had no natural right to survive. No one cared, but Yahuah did. And we're going to look at Talahim, or Psalm 113, verse 7 to 8.
He rises the poor out of the dust, lifts the needy from a dunghill, to make him sit with the nobles of his people.
Total for reading.
Yeah.
Do you read verse 8?
To make him sit with the nobles of his people.
All right. Total for reading. So here he raised the poor or weak from the dust. So the illustration here is the abandonment of newborn for Israel.
So this is Yisrael. We are seeing illustrated based on that which Yahuah said. You know, our people were like someone throwing out a newborn in the field. Nobody wants it. So this nation, in essence, was like nothing in the eyes of every other nation, which further solidifies the point that it is not because of things they did or because they were so upright But it is because of the pardon, the compassion, the mercy of the Most High Yahuah, who has called us out and came to Yisrael's rescue, even though it was unwashed, which means it was unclean. It was an unclean people, an unwanted people, the least among all peoples.
As you just read,
not counted as any valuable people. But Yahuah took us in. Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah. Yada Yahuah. And Toda for sharing.
Yada Yahuah.
Yada
Yahuah.
So we're going to ask someone to read for us verse 6 to 14. We're going to look at Yahuah's mercy, Israel adoption, and exaltation.
I'll read it.
All right.
6.
6 to 14.
Then I passed by you and saw you trampled down in your own blood. And I said to you, in your blood, live. And I said to you, in your blood, live. I have let you grow like a plant in the field, and you are grown and are great, and you come in the finest ornaments. Breasts were formed, your hair grew, and you were naked and bare. Again I passed by you and looked upon you and saw that your time was the time of love. And I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. And I swore an oath to you and entered into a covenant with you, and you became mine, declares the Master Yahuah. And I washed you in water, and I washed off your blood, and I anointed you with oil. And I dressed you in embroidered work and gave you sandals of leather. And I wrapped you in fine linen and covered you with silk. And I adorned you with ornaments. And I put bracelets on your wrists, a chain on your neck. And I put a ring on your nose and earrings in your ears and a crown of adorning on your head. Thus you were adorned with gold and silver, and your dress was of fine linen and silk and embroidered cloth. You ate fine flour and honey and oil, and you were exceedingly pretty and became fit for royalty. And your name went out among the nations because of your loveliness, for it was perfect. By my splendor which I have put on you, declares the Master Yahuah.
Toda for reading. So looking at verse 6, Kaya, which means live. You see here, Yahuah chose Israel to live despite her death-like state. And if you read through Shamut, Exodus 1 to 3, chapter 1 to 3, we see where Israel was suffering in misery, but we see where Yahuah find a way and choose to redeem them.
And even now he's calling his people to live. A lot of his people are still sleeping, walking in dead pagan doctrines, dead traditions. And Yahuah is saying, Chaya! Chaya!
Chaya! Wake up!
Chaya!
Live! Like a child who, remember, he already compared Israel to a newborn whose navel string was not yet cut, thrown out in the field. This metaphoric baby was about to die. And Yahuah passed and lifted up this nation and said, Chaya, live, live. And so through him, by him, we live. And in him, we live.
We Kaya.
Haya.
Ada Yahuah. So verse 7 to 8. The nakedness represent vulnerability and shame. And we're going to look at Bereshit and Genesis 12, verse 1 to 3.
And Yahuah said to Abram, go yourself out of your land, from your relatives and from your father's house, to a land which I show you. And I shall make you a great nation, and barak you, and make your name great. And you shall be a barakah. And I shall barak those who barak you, and curse him who curses you. And in you all the clans of the earth shall be baruch.
For reading. So here we see the multiplication taking place and the Abrahamic covenant with Yahuah taking place with Abraham right here. So the metaphor of marriage. So Yahuah covenant with Israel at Sinai. And we're going to look at Shamut 19 or Exodus 19 verse 5 to 6. Gonna ask someone to read it for us.
And now, if you diligently obey my voice, and shall guard my covenant, then you shall be my treasured possession above all the peoples, for all the earth, or the arats, is mine. And you shall be to me a reign of Kahanim and a Kadash nation. Those are the words which you are to speak to the children of Israel.
For reading. So this is where the covenant took place. So spread my skirt, kanaf, over you, a symbol of betrothal and protection. We're going to look at Ruth 3, verse 9.
And he said, who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, your female servant. Now you shall spread your covering over your female servant, for you are a redeemer.
For reading.
So it was a symbol of being betrothed for marriage. So it's not a skirt as we know skirt in modern times, but it was special clothing that would have symbolized whomever it was thrown over would now belong to this Aish or this husband. So he would cover his future Asha.
Toda for sharing. So we're going to look at verse 9 to 14. So Yahuah adorns Israel like a royal bride. All right, so we're going to ask someone just to read back verse 9 to 14 for us.
Read what? What book?
Yakhazaq'al 16.
And I washed you in water, and I washed off your blood, and I anointed you with oil. And I dressed you in embroidered work, and gave you sandals of leather, and I wrapped you in fine linen, and covered you with silk. And I adorned you with ornaments, and I put bracelets on your wrists, and a chain around your neck. And I put a ring on your nose, and earrings in your ears, and a crown of adorning on your head. Thus you were adorned with gold and silver, and your dress was of fine linen and silk, and embroidered cloth. You ate fine flour, and honey, and oil, and you were exceedingly pretty, and became fit for royalty. And your name went out among the nations because of your loveliness, for it was perfect by my splendor, which I had put on you, declares Master Yahuah.
For reading. So fine linen and silk that they wore here in the chapter is symbol of righteousness. And we're gonna look at Chazun or Revelation 19, verse 8.
And to her it was given to be dressed in fine linen, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the Kodashim.
For reading. So again, fine linen and silk represent our symbol of righteousness. Now, gold and silver, as mentioned in the passage, is a barakim of prosperity. So we're going to look at Dabarim, or Deuteronomy 8, verse 7 to 9.
But Yahuah, your Lord, is bringing you into a good land, a land of streams of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of the valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees, and of pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you eat bread without scarcity, in which you do not lack at all, a land whose stones are iron, and out of those whose hills you dig copper.
All right, to the for reading. So we see it's indeed a barakim of prosperity here, gold and silver representing. Now, her beauty was perfect. And we're going to look at Tahal, or Psalm 50, verse 2.
From Zion, from Tizlion, the perfection of loveliness, a Lord shall shine forth.
All right, to the for reading. So we see here in Tahal, or Psalm 50, verse 2, where Tision, or Zion, is the perfection of beauty. All right, so we're going to ask someone to read verse 15 to 34, Yakhazaq'al 16. And we're going to look at Yarushalam's idolatry, or idolatry and political betrayal.
What chapter is that?
Yakhazaq'al 16. Remember, that's what we're looking at. Yakhazaq'al 16. So we're looking at verse 15 to 34 now.
All right.
So we're going to ask someone to read it first.
But you trust in your own loveliness and whored because of your name, and poured out your whorings on everyone passing by who would have it. And you took some of your garments and made multicolored high places for yourself and whored on them, which should not have come about, nor shall it be. And you took your splendid ornaments of my gold and my silver that I gave you, and made yourself images of a male and whored with them. And you took your embroidered garments and covered them, and you put my oil and my incense before them, and my food which I gave you, fine flour and oil and honey which I fed you. You put it before them as sweet incense. And so it was, declares the Adon Yahuah. And you took your sons and your daughters, whom you bore to me, and these you slaughtered as food to them, were your whorings a small matter, that you have slain my children and gave them up to them by causing them to pass through the fire. And in all your abominations and whorings, you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, trampled down in your blood. Then it came to be after all your evil. Woe, woe to you, declares Adonai Yahuah, that you also built an arch place for yourself and made a high place in every street for yourself. You built your high places at the head of every way and made your loveliness to be loathed. And you parted your legs to every one who passed by, and increased your whorings. And you whored with the sons of Mizraim, your neighbors, greater flesh, and you increased your whorings to provoke me. And see, I have stretched out my hand against you and withdrew your portion, and gave you up to the desire of those who hate you, the daughters of the Pelishtites, who are ashamed of your wicked way. And you whored with the sons of Asher without being satisfied. And you whored with them and still were not satisfied. And you increased your whorings as far as the land of traders, cast them, and even then you were not satisfied. How weak is your heart, declares the Adon Yahuah, seeing you do all this, the deeds of a shameless hoe. You built your arch plates at the head of every way, and built your high place in every street. Yet you were unlike a whore, you scorned hire. The wife who commits adultery, who takes strangers instead of her husband, to all whores they give gifts, but you gave gifts to all your lovers, and bribed them to come to you from around in your whorings. Thus you are different from other women in your whorings, because no one whores after you. And in you given hire, while a hire was not given to you, thus you are different.
Yahuah. For reading. So we see verse 15, where Israel became proud and turned from Yahuah to false mighty one. Instead of gratitude, Israel became arrogant. And we see that over and over several times throughout scripture. We see that even when they were leaving Mitzrayim or Egypt, where instead of giving Yahuah gratitude, Israel became arrogant. So the term idolatry symbolizes idolatry, a betrayal of the covenant. And we're going to look at Hosea, Usha 2, verse 4 to 5.
Right.
And I shall not have compassion on her children, for they are the children of whorings. For their mother was whored. She who conceived them has acted shamelessly. For she said, I go after my lovers, who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my linen, my oil and my drink.
Toda for reading.
So we're seeing shameless Yisrael, going after every other doctrine, every other practice. And what is interesting, nobody is trying to be like them or be with them.
Mm-hmm.
So not pouring after them, but they are going after everyone.
Right.
Uses the comparison of one who goes out as a harlot. Usually her lovers brings her gifts or pays her money. But in this case, we see where Yisrael, who is harloting with these nations, is the one giving all the lovers gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to giving away her identity, who she is in Yahuah, she's also giving them gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So pouring into pagan practices, pouring into idolatry, pouring into everything that goes against the Most High Yahuah, and being arrogant and flaunting in it as if it is something to be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that happening even now. People flaunting in religious practices and pagan traditions, and they are so proud in it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would say loud and proud.
Mm.
And they act as though this is how I should be. This is what gives me my barakim. This is what allows me to have my food and my fine clothes, similar to what is being said in Usha.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that it's through these religious practices and traditions that they have seen much prosperity. Not recognizing they're pouring out and exchanging, in essence, their pearls, their beauty in Yahuah, for dust and dung. Because that's what idolatry is, heaps of dung.
Mm-hmm.
Barak Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
So idols, looking at verse 16 to 22, idols crafted from Yahuah gifts. So Israel used gold, silver, and fine linen that was given by Yahuah to build idols, offer food and incense to foreign mighty ones. We're going to look at Yeshayahu, or Isaiah 1, verse 13 to 15.
Stop bringing fertile offerings, incense. It is an abomination to me. New moons, Sabbath oath, the calling of meetings. I am unable to bear unrighteousness and assembly. My being hates your new moons and your appointed times. They are a trouble to me. and weary by bearing them. And when you spread out your hands, I hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I do not hear. Your hands have become filled with blood. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
So this is not saying that Yahuah does not expect his people to observe feasts and Shabbatim and all of that. This is saying that because of the condition of the people, they know that their hands are filthy. They know their lives are filthy, and yet they want to come and offer up unto Yahuah, shouting praise with lips that are unclean, observing the Shabbat even though they know they have not been living right, doing things to show to others, but not actually living as Yahuah designed or instructed for them to live. So Yahuah is saying, you can't come to me with all of that. You're filthy. Your hands are covered in blood. You have no right to observe these appointed times in your condition. Get right. Clean up yourself before you come before me. And even now, in modern times, we see where there are people who are trying to use pagan traditions to observe even the Shabbat. So it's not even observed in its truest form, as scripture would have indicated. Calling on pagan names, using pagan rituals and religious practices to observe the feast of the Most High Yahuah, to observe the appointed times of the Most High Yahuah in manners in which he has not ordained or he has not approved of. And it is a wake-up call for us too. When we come before the Most High Yahuah, are we coming before him with hypocrisy, knowing there are some things that are not right, but pretending as if everything is okay? Yahuah sees deeper than even what we can see. And he's not surprised by anything we do physically, because he looks at our intentions and motives. Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
All right. So looking at child sacrifice to Malak was a horrific crime. And we're going to look at Uikara, or Leviticus 18, verse 21, and Yirmiyahu, or Jeremiah 7, verse 31. Who's going to read first?
Said Uikara 18.
Verse 21.
I'll read it. And do not give any of your offspring to pass through the Malak, and do not profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahuah.
Total for reading. In Yahuah, or Jeremiah 7, verse 31.
They have built the high places of Tupha, which is in the valley of Ban Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did it come into my heart or my love.
Total for reading. All right. So we're going to take another look at another incident where in 2nd Malachi or 2nd Kings 21, verse 6, where we see Manasseh sacrifice his own son.
Mm. 21.
Verse 6.
And he made his band, or his son, pass through the fire, and practiced magic, and used divination, and consulted with spiritists and mediums. He did much evil in the eyes of Yahuah to provoke.
So for reading. And even now, we see people doing that also, sacrificing their band or their child also. So we're gonna look at the Hebraic application from a spiritually and practically. So we're gonna look at it now. So from a modern child sacrifice, cultural idolatry. So just as Israel gave their children over to false mighty ones, modern society sacrifices children to cultural idols. We got media and entertainment exposing children to hypersexualized, violent, and corrupt content. The education system promoting ideologies that exclude the Most High, stripping away foundational truths from Scripture. Technology addiction, handing over children to screens with no spiritual guidance. And we see that more than ever as young as 1 year old, or even younger, 6 months. There you see them with screens, giving the babies screens to watch what they deem as being right. But we all know that in everything there is a hidden message. Gender and identity confusion. Teaching against Yahuah's design, leading children into confusion and harm.
So we're seeing all of these, though it may not be a physical fire in these instances, it's a form of giving over, or yaladim, or children, or over to the other mighty ones of the system. Having children exposed to different videos, music videos, and movies with content that is corrupt and that is slowly influencing their behaviors, causing our children to think that they are the ones who choose their gender, and that it has somehow moved away from being determined by what you're born with. Not being sure who they are. Not being sure who they belong to. And especially our people. It is so sad when we see those who are supposed to be awakened into who they truly are falling prey from their very young to these things.
What's that word? What we call it? The Philistines and the Amorites and the what?
Amorites and
the Hittites.
So the association of the Amorites and Hittites is really them getting involved with these other nations' practices, idolatrous practices. And in some instances, even intermarrying with these other nations, and so taking on their cultures. And so we see that even in the scattering, our people have taken on these spiritually adulterous practices,
They
like
don't even
wayward wife.
Get it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Like a wayward wife, and has gone after the traditions, the practices, the activities, the ideologies of the nations around them. And it starts from very young. When you remove the truth of the word from the system of education and replace it with Greek philosophies and all of these other things, our people especially lose their identity.
Yeah, identity lost.
Lose their identity. Because they're not learning about who they are in school. They're not learning a great deal about where they truly come from. Especially for those who are native born. They declare that they are dedicating 1 month, and they use the byword Black history.
Right.
And they say they're dedicating that time to all people who are melanated. By the way, not all who are melanated are Yisrael. But specific to those who are Yisrael. Observe that in most of these instances, at least in most that I have seen locally and overseas, a lot of them begin so-called history teachings and lessons on a ship. So who were we before the ship? Who were we before colonization? Who were we before they captured our ancestors? Teach us who we were. Who should we worship? What was the name before the letter J? Because that didn't come around until 1524 and after. So what was it before? Because of disobedience, our people, as was declared in the Dabarim 28, among other prophetic utterances, and also in other parts of Torah, Oikara 26, I believe it was.
36.
That Yahuah says, you know, because of this, you're going to lose who you are. You're going to forget who you are. You're going to forget your identity. I don't remember the verses of 26 of Oikara. But it's also stated there. It is so important that we are careful that we're not guilty of these that Zakan has here enlisted about modern forms of pretty much sacrificing our children to practices and thought processes that do not honor the Most High Yahuah. Barak Yahuah.
Barak Yahuah. And I just want to add, I usually say be careful what we watch or what the children watch. But the truth is, everything now is very much corrupt. Every single thing. So there's nothing out there that you can say, all right, I'm going to leave my child or my grandchildren to watch animation or something, because they have now corrupt everything. So there's really nothing out there for them to watch. They're draining them and putting them underneath spells. So this passing through fire, but instead of literal flames, it's emotional, spiritual, and a mental destruction. So, looking at number 2, abortion as literal application. Israel, we do not practice this wicked act. It is a modern form of child sacrifice. Just as ancient people gave up their children for convenience, success, or prosperity, some do the same now, offering unborn lives on the altar of freedom or career. Looking at number 3, failure to teach the children. And if we read, or where we repeated this earlier, Deuteronomy, Adabarin 6, and we did repeat verse 6 to 7, but someone can remind us of what is said, and it is part of the Shama.
Of course, it's the part that talks about teaching your children diligently. We say it every Shabbat.
Every Shabbat.
In essence, I guess maybe it's where it is in terms of verses, but it would begin with, and these words which I command
Yeah.
you, yam on your heart. You shall teach
Right.
diligently unto your children, and you shall talk of them. When you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up.
Mm-hmm.
So we should know it right now, because we say it every Shabbat.
So we see Yahuah commanded us to teach our children diligently. But when we neglect that, we let others spiritually consume them. In this way, we give them over to the fire by omission, failing to guard and guide them in his way. So we may live in this world, but we are called out people, Israel, Yada Yahuah.
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 Yada Yahuah. All right, my sparkle. We're going to take a break. Shabbat Shalom, my sparkle. Welcome back.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
All right. All right, so we're going to continue. We're going to continue. We're going to be looking at verses 35 to 43 of the same Yakhazaq'al 16. So I'm going to ask someone to read it for us. Who's taking it?
I'm being heard.
Are we being heard? Miss Parker? Are we still here?
We're here.
Okay. All right. So who's going to read for us?
Okay, I'm going to try to read it for you. 35 to 43, you said?
Khan.
I'm sorry. Therefore, O whore, hear the word of Yahuah. Thus said the Master Yahuah, because your copper was poured out and your nakedness uncovered in your whorings with your lovers and with the idols of your abominations, and because of the blood of your children which you gave to them. Therefore, see, I am gathering all your lovers with whom you took pleasure, all those you loved, with all those you hated, and I shall gather them from all around against you, and shall uncover your nakedness to them, and they shall see all your nakedness. And I shall judge you with judgments of adulteresses and shedders of blood, and I shall bring on you the blood of wrath and jealousy, and I shall give you into their hand, and they shall throw your arch plates down, and they shall break down your high places, and they shall strip you of your garments, and they shall take your splendid adornments and leave you naked and bare. And they shall bring up an assembly against you, and they shall stone you with stones, and thrust through with their swords, and burn your houses with fire, and execute judgments on you before the eyes of many women. And I shall make you stop whoring, and no longer give hire. So I shall bring my wrath to rest upon you, and my jealousy shall turn away from you, and I shall be calm and no longer be wroth, because you did not remember the days of your youth, but troubled me with all this. So see, I shall also bring your way on your own head, declares the Master Yahuah. And shall I not do this thought for all your abominations?
Hold up for reading.
Very graphic.
Very graphic.
And this is how undiluted it gets. Yahuah is real, and his right rulings are real.
All right, put up for sharing. So we see, as Mora said, it's very graphic, and the right ruling is coming. And we see, looking at verse 38, we see the penalty for adultery is equal to death. And we're going to look at Uikara, or Leviticus 20, verse 10. And I also want to read it first.
And the man who commits adultery with the wife of another man, who commits adultery with the wife of his neighbor, the adulterer and the adulteress shall certainly be put to death.
Penalty equal to death.
That's graphic.
Very graphic. It is very graphic.
And this is why when the Nabi Nathan went to Dawood, sovereign Dawood, and said, "You are that man," when he gave him the analogy of the man who took the little lamb, even though he had thousands of sheep, in reference to him taking Bathsheba and causing her husband to die, Dawood knew, because every sovereign sitting on the throne was required to write a copy of the Torah for himself. And so he knew that this act of adultery that he committed, the penalty was to be death. He could not give any sacrifices or bulls. So observe what he said in one of his writings. You do not desire any sacrifices of any animals, or I would have given it. The sacrifices you desire are a broken and a contrite lamb and rook. He speaks of clean hands. So this is a very, very serious act against the Most High Yahuah. And Yahuah takes covenant in both or Ketubah with him, now through Yahushua HaMashiach, as well as or Ketubah earthly in our marriages, very seriously.
Okay. Khan, third up for sharing.
Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah. So we're going to look at Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah 25, verse 9.
See, I am sending and taking all the tribes of the north, declares Yahuah, and Nebuchadrezzar, the sovereign of Babel, my servant, and shall bring them against this land, and against its inhabitants, and against these nations all around, and shall put them under the ban, and make them an astonishment, and a hissing, and everlasting ruins.
To the for reading. So we see where Babylon was Yahuah's instrument of right ruling. We're going to ask someone to read for us. Yakhazaq'al 16 again, looking at verse 44 to 52. Who's going to take it?
See, all who use proverbs shall use this proverb against you, like mother, like daughter. You are your mother's daughter, who despises her. Let me make sure I'm in the right place.
You're in the right place.
Okay. Salaki, who despises her husband and her children. And you are the sister of your sisters, who despise their husbands and their children. Your mother was a Hittite, and your father an Amorite, and your elder sister is Shemron, she and her daughters, who is dwelling to the north of you. And your younger sister, who is dwelling to the south of you, is Saddam and her daughters. And have you not walked in their ways and did according to their abominations? But in all your ways you soon became more corrupt than they? As I live, declares the Master Yahuah, neither your sister Saddam nor her daughters have done as you and your daughters have done. See, this was the wickedness of your sister Saddam. She and her daughter had pride, sufficiency of bread, and unconcerned ease, and she did not help the poor and needy. And they were haughty and did abomination before me, and I took them away when I saw it. And Shemaron did not commit half of your sins, but you have increased your abominations more than they. And by all the abominations which you have done, you made your sister seem righteous.
52.
You also who pleaded for your sisters, bear your own shame, because the sins which you committed were more abominable than theirs. They are more righteous than you. So be ashamed too, and bear your own shame, because you have made your sister seem righteous. Bush atah.
For reading. So we see another graphic explanation again taking place. And we're going to take a look at verse 46, where Samaria, another rain, fell first. And Sodom was destroyed for wickedness. We can look at Bereshit or Genesis 19, looking at verse 24 to 25.
Notice Yahuah uses allegories that you can relate to, because you can see these things around you and see how it applies. You know, when Yisrael is likened to a disloyal wife going around, you know, pretty much prostituting herself with everyone else, you can see that. You can relate to that allegory. Comparing to a newborn being thrown out in the dirt, left to die, you can relate to that because you can see it. And so these allegories are used so that we see just how far-reaching and how devastating and how ugly the situation is because of the crimes of Israel.
To for sharing. And who is going to take Barshit 19, verse 24 to 25?
And Yahuah rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, and Yahuah out of the Shamayim. So he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a post of salt.
To for reading. Yada Yahuah. And we see here, as I said earlier, where Sodom was destroyed for their wickedness. But Jerusalem became worse than both. If we look back at the same Yakhazaq'al 16, looking at verse 49, we see where Jerusalem became worse than both. Worse. So Saddam's crookedness was more than sexual immorality. It was greed, arrogance, laziness, and the lack of fairness, especially to the poor. So Jerusalem's crime were even greater because they had the Torah and the Nabim, or the prophets, but they still rebel. So looking at asking someone to read verse 53 to 63 of the same Yakhazaq'al 16, we're going to look at the redemption through a new covenant.
And I shall turn back their captivity, the captivity of Sodom and her daughters, and the captivity of Shamaron and her daughters, and the captivity of your captives with them, so that you bear your shame and shall blush for all that you did when you comforted them. And your sisters Sodom and her daughters return to their former state, and Shamaron and her daughters return to their former state, and you and your daughters return to your former state. Was not your sister Sodom a byword in your mouth in the yomim of your pride, before your evil was exposed, as the time of the reproach of the daughters of Aram and all who were around her, and the daughters of the Philistine, who are despising you everywhere? You shall bear your wickedness and your abominations, declares Yahuah. For this is what Adani, or Sovereign Master Yahuah, says: I shall deal with you as you have done, in that you have despised the oath by breaking the covenant. But I shall remember my covenant with you in the Yomim, or the days of your youth, and I shall establish an everlasting covenant with you. And you shall remember your ways and be ashamed when you receive your older and your younger sisters. And I shall give them to you for your for daughters, though not by your own covenant. And I myself shall establish my covenant with you, and you shall know that I am Yahuah, so that you remember and you shall be ashamed, and never open your mouth anymore because of your shame, when I pardon you for all you have done, declares the Adani, Yahuah.
Yeah, total for reading. Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
So despite the severe right ruling, Yahuah ends with a promise of restoration. Verse 60, but I shall remember my covenant with you in the young of your youth, and I shall establish an everlasting covenant with you. Future restoration. This refers to the Mashiach age, where Yahuah redeems his people through a renewed covenant. We're going to take a look at Jeremiah 31, verse 31 to 34. I'm going to ask someone to read it for us. Fine.
See, the Yumim, or days, are coming, declares Yahuah, when I shall make a new covenant with the house of Israel through the house of Yahudah. Not like the covenant I made with their fathers or their Abayim in the Yom, when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim. My covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuah. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those Yumim, declares Yahuah. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts, and write it on their hearts, or their Nababut. And I shall be their Araim, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall they teach. Say to verse where?
34, sorry.
Oh, and no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahuah. For I shall forgive their wickedness, and remember their wrongs no more.
Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
Wow, what a covenant. So Yahuah will not abandon Israel forever. We're going to look at Romans 11, verse 26.
And so shall all Yachazaq'al be saved, as it has been written, the deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away wickedness from Jacob.
All right, total for reading. So looking at verse 63, it said, I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall know that I am Yahuah. The restoration is based on Yahuah's mercy and not Israel's merit.
So it's not anything that we have done. It is not that we were right or that we got it all right. You know, observe how the chapter begins. Yahuah says, nobody wanted you. You were like a newborn cast out, thrown away, ready to die. But I found you, I picked you up, and I said, live. And I cleaned you off. You weren't washed. You were neglected and rejected, and I took you in. You were like your family members, those other pagan nations. I cleaned you up and I covenanted with you. You know, so it is not anything that we have done. It is not because of us being born a particular way or us doing all the right things. It boils down to Yahuah's pardon, to his mercy, to his love towards us. That is what rescues us. That is what keeps us. And what keeps us connected is us remaining loyal to the ketubah, to the covenant written between us and Yahuah through Yahushua HaMashiach. Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah. Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
Toda for sure. So, modern idolatry. The idols have changed form, but their power remains. Careers, fame, and influence. Compromise with culture for acceptance. Trust in itself, money, or man. Sort of pride that say, I have made myself great. Like ancient Yarushalam, many turn from covering of Yahuah and seek affirmation from the world, never realizing they trade in gold for dust. But Yahuah remembers the covenant. Even in betrayal, Yahuah does not forget. This is the heart of the Father. Tender mercy flowing from we were in the womb, like compassion of a creator who still longs to restore. He does not discard his bride. He disciplines, yes, but he also renews, restores, and reestablishes. This is the essence of true teshuvah, returning to the one we have wronged, not only in tears, but in covenant loyalty. So who have we become? Yahuah's word in Yakhazaq'al 16 or Ezekiel 16 is not only about ancient Yarusalam. It is a timeless cry from a wounded husband to his disloyal bride. Though the city was once naked and cast aside, Yahuah clothed her, adorned her, and established her. But when she became comfortable and admired, she forgot her source. My Maspaka, this is not only history, this is now.
Amah.
Alright. So in Abry, the word for idolatry or zanuth doesn't only imply physically adultery. It refers to spiritual disloyalty, covenant betrayal. Even now, Not everyone may be bowing to carved idols, but the altars are still here, are still there. The altar of self. Follow your heart. Be your own truth. Do what feels good, or do what feels right. The altar of popular culture. Trading all values for worldly pagan acceptance. The altar of technology, where attention is a new currency and distraction drowns out discernment. The altar of compromise, where truth is reshaped to fit comfort and convenience. Even within the believing community, the beauty of salvation and the garments of righteousness are sometimes used to attract attention to itself rather than to honor Yahuah. Like ancient Yarushalam, some have taken his gifts, talents, influence, freedom, and offer them up to false causes, movements, and ideologies that do not align with his will or his reign. So you are not your shame. You are not your past. You are not your compromise. You are his bride and he is calling you home. Return and remember. To those who feel foregone, clothed in shame rather than splendor, Yakhazaq'al 16 or Ezekiel 16 is both a rebuke and invitation. Return to your covering. Remember your first love. Renew your covenant. So let us strip away the idols, not only from our shelves, but from our labab or our hearts. Let us reject the false lovers, culture, compromise, and pride, and return to the one who spread his garment over us when we were naked and unworthy. Let us respond, not with rebellion, but with teshuvah. So let us return to the one who loved us when no one else saw us. Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
Yada Yahuah.
Barak Yahuah.